The offseason is often an exciting time of the year for NBA fans, given that's when most of the game-changing transactions take place. But while free agency is usually remembered for those teams who manage to consolidate their position as playoff or championship contenders, there's always a group who comes up as losers. That loser brand can be caused by many different things, such as losing a key free agent, making questionable decisions in the draft or the trade market, failing to add quality pieces, or overpaying players that could be considered as average. And while things haven't exactly gone terribly wrong for the Boston Celtics, it's fair to say the team has underperformed during the offseason so far. But will that be enough to take them out of contention, or could it end up being a blessing in disguise? Welcome to Courtside. Today, we'll take a look at the latest moves by the Celtics and how they may end up affecting their future in coming years. Throughout Boston's playoff run, some of the team's weaknesses were exposed by rivals such as the Toronto Raptors and Miami Heat. And once the organization was defeated in the conference finals, it became evident it would need to work during the offseason to address such flaws. The two areas where the Celtics needed to improve the most were bench scoring and solid production at the center position. While Beantown had 5 of the most talented players in the league in its core 5, there was never a clear leader on the bench when the starters needed to take a rest or when someone missed time because of injury. And there was the same issue with the center position. While Daniel Theis did an excellent job during his first season as a starter, it was clear he didn't have the tools to stop star big men consistently, and neither did the players who were behind him in the depth chart. So, when their season came to an end, the Celtics knew they had to try to fix those problems to give themselves a better chance at competing for a championship in the coming year. However, it wasn't clear how they were going to do that. Heading into the offseason, Boston was among the teams without available cap space to upgrade the roster. So the team faced the challenge of filling its needs through the use of draft picks and a pair of salary cap exceptions. However, even while it didn't seem like an easy thing to do, most people expected the Celtics to be among the teams looking to make acquisitions. The reason for that? Danny Ainge has consistently found a way to acquire either valuable players or assets when it didn't look like it was possible. And Boston has usually been the winner in most of the deals it's been a part of, so it was reasonable to assume he'd be able to do it once again. In fact, people were expecting that to be the case. That way, rumors regarding the front office's plans started to circulate in social media, and people expected at least one of them to turn out fruitful. Some of the most intriguing rumors indicated the team was looking to move Kemba Walker, Gordon Hayward, and their 3 draft selections to acquire players like Drew Holiday and Miles Turner, or move up in the lottery to acquire a rookie that helped them right away. But unfortunately, things didn't work out as people expected. First, the Pelicans rejected the offer for Holiday and instead traded him to Milwaukee, thus helping a conference rival improve its chances to compete for a championship. Then when draft night came around, the C's were unable to turn their multiple picks into a more valuable one and had to pivot by selecting players that may eventually help them out. Last but not least, after agreeing to extend the deadline for Hayward to exercise his player option and being linked to Indiana as a potential trade partner for months, Boston couldn't secure a deal that would give them something in return when he decided to leave. The Charlotte Hornets offered the versatile wing a max contract out of nowhere, and despite him reportedly preferring to play in Indiana, he decided to take his talents to North Carolina after figuring out the Celtics wouldn't agree on a trade with the Pacers. To add insult to injury, it was reported Indiana had offered Turner and backup wing Doug McDermott in exchange for Hayward, both players who could have immediately helped the team improve. However, Boston's front office wanted to include either Victor Oladipo or TJ Warren into the deal, and Indiana was reluctant to move either player. In other words, the Celtics failed to fix some of the roster's most relevant holes because of its greediness. That outcome was a hard blow to the franchise, considering the cap space used on Hayward can't be replaced. And even more so after it became known he wanted to join the Pacers and was willing to cooperate with the Celtics to make things work out for both sides. But something that makes the situation even worse is the fact Gordon becomes the 3rd max player that decides to leave the team earlier than expected. Al Horford and Kyrie Irving did the same thing last year after a tumultuous season in which the team failed to live up to expectations. So aside from the roster suffering a significant loss, the franchise also receives a blow to its reputation, as the world witnessed how valuable pieces that were expected to lead the team to a championship decided to leave in consecutive years. Of course, not all the fault should be on the team's shoulders. No one could have predicted the chemistry issues that plagued the team a year ago, the injuries suffered by Hayward and Irving, or Charlotte and Philadelphia offering absurd contracts to both Horford and Gordon out of nowhere. However, Boston is responsible for mismanaging the vast collection of talent it amassed, as well as for creating a situation in which former and current stars preferred to leave instead of remaining with the team. But now that this outcome has taken place, there's a question some people may be asking themselves. What comes next for the Celtics? The truth is, there are still reasons to be optimistic about the team's future by bringing back most of the roster that reached last season's conference finals. Barring injuries, the C's should still remain as one of the best teams in the East. On top of that, the front office managed to acquire some players that should still be able to help fix their most glaring issues. These players include backup point guard Jeff Teague and former champion big man Tristan Thompson. Teague should be able to provide playmaking off the bench while also creating a few points of his own, while Thompson could either join the starting lineup or become an excellent complement off the bench. Tice's and Semi Ojalai's contracts were also fully guaranteed for the season, which ensures the Celtics will bring back a few more options at the forward spots. But there was an additional move that was, without a question, the team's greatest success history of the offseason. That was the extension of Jason Tatum to a 5-year max contract, which means he and Jaylen Brown should be the focal point of the team for years to come. The signing in itself doesn't represent the most exciting news, as it was considered it was only a matter of time before it took place. However, it will allow the Celtics to develop a strategy for the future. And this time around, there's a chance things work out for the best. After all, part of the reason why most of the team's veterans decided to leave was because of the rise of the young duo. During the 2018 playoffs, Tatum and Brown emerged as talented scoring options that could carry a team upon their shoulders. So, when players like Irving and Hayward had to adapt to sharing the burden with young players despite knowing they could be the main option for a different team while also getting paid with a huge contract, they decided to leave. And even though the departure of 3 max players is never something to be proud of, it could end up being a blessing in disguise. Without Irving, Horford, and Terry Rozier in the roster, Tatum and Brown had the doors open to assume more responsibility on the offensive end. And each of them answered the call by putting the best season of their young careers. Now that Hayward is also gone, they'll need to assume an even bigger load for the team. But if last season's playoffs were any indication of what's about to come, the Celtics should feel confident about the future. If Walker and Smart manage to remain healthy along with them, there's a chance Boston keeps playing as well as it did last season. And the additions of Thompson and Teague, as well as another year of experience for Tice and the rest of the team's youngsters, should only help them get better. In the end, though, Boston may not be ready to get over Milwaukee, Miami, or the up-and-coming Brooklyn Nets yet, and assuming that reality could be what eventually helps them win a championship in a few years. The team has already proven that putting up together a lot of talented players with similar roles doesn't make winning any easier. So now it should shift its focus towards the development of its young duo, as well as to the financial flexibility that allows it to acquire players that can form a quality supporting cast. Another option would be to try to acquire players that can grow along with Tatum and Brown while also complementing their skill sets on both ends of the court. However, that could require trading either Walker, Smart, or both of them. So it may not be an easy decision to make. But as long as they understand the priority should be to build a contender for the future, everything should be fine. Hopefully the front office is patient enough to understand that both Jaylen and Jason are still under 25 and that their best years are still to come. Altogether, the Celtics have been dealing with an offseason that, despite not being a complete failure, feels like a disappointment compared with the years when Ainge was making deals to acquire elite players. But now that the dust has settled, Boston should have a clearer vision of how it should operate from now on. Tatum and Brown are good enough to lead the team to the playoffs every year. So with that in mind, the team should focus on not repeating its previous mistakes so it can compete for a championship sooner rather than later. But now, we'd like to know what your thoughts are about Boston's most recent moves. You think they're going to be able to keep competing at this high level? Let us know in the comments. We hope you've enjoyed today's video, and if you did, remember to like it and subscribe to our channel for more NBA content. We are Courtside.